To everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters in the different countries, in the different continents, in the different time zones, wherever you are, we extend you a very warm welcome for yet another very powerful Friday from Mr. Anil Manocha from Singapore, who's the Executive Director of the Ion Exchange Asia Pacific Private Limited Singapore. And I take a privilege, he's also the Senior Advisor to our chamber, ICSI. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening, when you enjoy beautiful Singapore, I wish to introduce two of my very distinguished guests, panelists, and esteemed guests this evening, Honorable Professor Dr. Sulochana Nair ma'am. She's the Vice Chancellor, Binary University, Malaysia, and they specialize in IT, management, and entrepreneurship. And we have made a humble request to her this evening to focus on entrepreneurship that is future. Now, at the same time, we have also been joined by young, very dynamic, dedicated youngster, Dr. Nishtha Manocha, Senior Research Engineer, EDHEC Infrastructure, Infra. And of course, we have got Anil Manocha ji, our Senior Advisor with us. So let me move on and let me have a quick rolling so that we can proceed. 12th of August, Wednesday, was the World Youth Day. Wonderful celebration, deliberation, congratulations. We all enjoyed together from the world over. And that day, the Honorable State Minister, Union Minister, Government of India, Shri Ratan Lal Kataria ji, along with a very special guest of honor, and the lady who presided over the session was Arushi Nishant Pant. She is an environmentalist and she's a social activist, and she's a founder of Sparsh Ganga, and she joined us on 12th of August. And the entire program, basically, of course, we got a lot of inputs from Anil Manocha ji. Ladies and gentlemen, thereafter the journey started, and we kept on having a couple of important programs from time to time. Our chamber extends a very hearty welcome to all of you since 1994. Like the Honorable Vice Chancellor is from Malaysia, and there is an organization called GOPIO, Global Organization of People of Indian Origin. I would like to just remind her, we are the chamber on the similar lines, which takes care of non-resident Indians world over. There are approximately 30 million NRIs at this point of time world over in different countries. We started the journey in 1994, and this is the confluence of the non-resident Indians, corporate, government interface together. During this pandemic, coronavirus, doctors, nurses, paramedical people, they're doing great job, they're great warriors. But at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, let me assure you, it is not because the Vice Chancellor and another Dr. Nishtha is here, that's why I'm telling, but otherwise also teachers, educators, technocrats, Vice Chancellors, directors, principals, headmasters, and of course our technocrats, they are doing great job during this pandemic, and that's why they are focusing and they're working hard. Like doctors are taking care of patients, these people are taking care of children. 1.86 billion children are away from schools, colleges, and universities at this point of time. So ladies and gentlemen, to keep the education relevant, to make the education relevant at this point of time, these entire ecosystem of education, fraternity, they're doing great, great wonders and great job. India always believes, and we look at the entire world, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. When we talk about it, the whole world is one family. Heartiest congratulations to Honorable Prime Minister of India, Education Minister of India, the entire ecosystem of India, all the stakeholders, those are directly, indirectly with the education system. The new education policy, which has been announced on 29th of July, it is an integrated approach where technology, where vocational, where skills, where competencies, no compartment of art, science, commerce. And at the same time, when we are talking about technical part, water management strategies also is a great concern for all of us. Saving every drop of water in your school, in your college, in your university. Ladies and gentlemen, all the research which is coming from the world over, the next global crisis is going to be related to water. If we do not take care of water right at this time, the world is heading towards a great crisis. We got to be saving every drop of water. And where from will it start? Will it start from home? And when I say home, who is the homemaker? It's always the lady of the sweet home. So that means she's a mother also, she's a daughter also, she's a wife also, she's a child, grandchild, whatsoever you can think of. So women empowerment is so important for all of us. And today we have got a very fine balance. We have got two ladies and we have got two gentlemen, including me. So there's a perfect balance, equal rights and equal empowerment. Right. Our chambers since morning till evening, 12 hours non-stop beaming, which we have got every day. And that is, we start early in the morning with Australia, Fiji, New Zealand. From there, we come to ASEAN. And from there, we go to Middle East. Then we go to Central Asia. Then we go to Canada, Europe, America. And then, of course, after this, again, a program is going to be there at 7 p.m. today. Don't forget to join. It's a very interesting program. Of course, this is a very special program. But following this, 7 o'clock, there is a program today where we are going to talk about how music is the integral part of education ecosystem. Whether you want to teach mathematics or physics or chemistry or biology or environmental sciences, anything, music is the integral part. So today we have got a very special guest who is joining us and who has basically conceived and he has designed, composed, sung, music, everything of a new education policy of India, that is Vishwa Guru Banna Hai Bharat, Bharat Ka Samman Karo. So our chamber throughout the week, we have got approximately 25 webinars that is all dedicated to education empowerment. We have got teachers, we have got youth, we have got water management strategies, we have got Swami Vivekanand, inputs towards education and youth, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, India ASEAN, micro, small and medium enterprise, and of course, non-resident Indians from world over. Like tomorrow, we have got a special program at 8 p.m. in the evening from NRIs for the school education. And Sunday evening, the lady is coming all the way from Houston, from Howdy Modi city, that is from the Texas. And she is going to talk about basically Indian Vedas, India's heritage. Both the programs are at 8 p.m. tomorrow and day after tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Then there is a 400 million plus teachers, educators, students, youth, and they told all your programs are in English. Why don't you have a program in Hindi also? So ladies and gentlemen, every day at 12:30 in the afternoon, there's a motivational talk for children, and that is आज की युवा पीढ़ी क्या चाहती है, आज की युवा पीढ़ी क्या सोचती है, आज की युवा पीढ़ी को क्या चाहिए. That is something which we have to talk to the millennials. And that is a wonderful program every day at 12:30. This is what is coming tonight at 7 p.m. विश्व गुरु बनना है भारत, भारत का सम्मान करो, शिक्षा के पथ पर आगे बढ़कर सबका ही कल्याण करो. It's India education song and writer, composer and performer, and he's going to talk about education empowerment through music, and that is coming up this evening at 7 p.m. today, where we will talk about what was the ancient and what is today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the research which our chamber has gathered from 152 countries, right from 25th of March till 30th of November, and where we are talking about the golden triangle is no more Delhi, Agra, Jaipur. The golden triangle is your basic food, your basic health, and your basic education. And B2B is no more business to business. It is back to basics. Sustainable development of the world. Do you know that 1.86 billion children are away at present from school, colleges, and universities as per the stats of the UNESCO? Whatsoever human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Let's come together. Let's make education relevant. Global confluence of the educators, motivators, technocrats, counselors, wellness experts, corporate, government administrators, decision makers, all of them together from the world. Should you wish to be a panelist or should you wish to send any suggestion, send us a mail. Should you wish to come on a WhatsApp, number is right over here. Let's get together, all of us, whatever best we can do for the humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, let's extend a very hearty welcome to Dr. Nishtha Manocha, EDHEC Infra, Singapore. She is a senior research engineer at the EDHEC Infra, which is a venture of the renowned international EDHEC Business School. And EDHEC Infra is the infrastructure investment index provider that provides the most advanced, fair, and risk-aware benchmarks for infrastructure investors. Her role at EDHEC is to study the relationship between the environment, social and governance characteristics of infrastructure companies and their financial performance. Dr. Nishtha is well experienced in the field of infrastructure, sustainable finance, hydrology, climate adaptation, real options, water resource management, and water policy. Wow. Dr. Nishtha is the recipient of the several international awards. She was among the winners circle in the Ideas for Action 2017 competition held by the World Bank Group and the Zicklin Centre for Business Ethics Research, Wharton Business School. She received the 2014 Singapore Netherlands Sustainability Award and the President's Award awarded by the Ministry of Environment, South Korea. In addition to this, she has multiple publications to her name in leading academic journals. A hearty welcome and a pleasure to have Dr. Nishtha Manocha from Singapore joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Here is the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Binary University, Malaysia. Ladies and gentlemen, we extend a very hearty welcome to Professor Dr. Sulochana Nair ma'am. She is having the roots in Kerala. So people, those are watching from Kerala, you all should feel very happy and do the clapping for her in a digital way. Professor Dr. Sulochana Nair is the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Binary University, currently heading the Center for Social Entrepreneurship, as well as the Dean of the Binary Graduate School. My God, I'm so happy because social entrepreneurship is deep down in my heart, my concern and my need of the hour at this point of time. At the age of 70, I shouldn't forget, I must write social entrepreneurship to be the focus. Great. Her specialization is in the development studies, specifically working in the field of poverty, labor, gender, and rural development. Rural development, yes. In addition to providing policy inputs to the government, Professor Dr. Nair is also involved in teaching, consultancy, training, capacity building programs for Malaysia, Central Asia, and Cambodia. She also is a trustee of the Gandhi Memorial Trust, an NGO devoted to assist in the establishment of a society whose members are dedicated to the service of the community in the relief of distress, poverty, and illiteracy based on Gandhian principles. We extend her a very hearty welcome, but imprint on my spirit and my soul is social entrepreneurship and rural development, because India still is rural economy. Great. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, my own, because this program belongs to him and I'm sitting over here because of him. It is Anil Manocha ji, Executive Director with Ion Exchange Asia Pacific Private Limited from Singapore. Anil ji is based out of Singapore and is an experienced professional in water and waste management. Both areas are very important, ladies and gentlemen, water management and waste management, because both are very big concerns for the entire global ecosystem. He is Executive Director with the Ion Exchange Asia Pacific Private Limited. He comes with a rich professional experience of 35 years working with various stakeholders in Asia, Middle East, Africa, and other parts of the world. He actively works with communities, industry, technology partners, government, financial institutions in offering practical solutions for water treatment, water conservation, wastewater treatment, zero liquid discharge, and infrastructure. Anil ji is associated with various chambers and he is senior advisor to our chamber and Singapore Water Association, India Business Forum, Trade Organization, and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming these distinguished guests this evening. They all are with us and we extend them a very hearty welcome, and it's a pleasure Malaysia is here, Singapore is over here, Manocha ji is here, and Nishtha is also here, and Dr. Sulochana Nair ji has traveled all the way from Kerala to linkage to the Malaysia. Wow, what a wonderful. So with these words, I extend a very hearty welcome and I request Anil Manocha ji to take on the floor and to start today's proceeding.
Thank you, Gulshan ji. Good day, everyone, and greetings to all of you. Uh, uh, I will be talking as usual to you what exactly we have done. Today is the 7th webinar series, and the topic is changing landscape in education sector and Singapore water story. So to support us, we have two eminent speakers who will be covering the subject of their expertise. Just to brief you what exactly has been done so far. So far, we have covered, we have 9 speakers since 20th of October. And all these speakers, if you put together their experience in the water sector, it is more than 150 years. So each speaker came with the experience of more than 15 to 20 years in the field of water and environment. So we have heard 9 speakers since October 23rd, covering various topics. And uh, uh, if we look at the topics which we covered from the sessions on the surface water, we covered the session on groundwater contamination. We talked about causes of surface water pollution. We talked about the causes of groundwater pollution. We also learned that these pollution are man-made as well as natural. When we talk about natural, the water pollutions could be because of cyclones, floods, volcanic eruptions. And when it comes to man-made, it's industrial pollution, sewage discharge and all. Also, we touched upon how do we remove this contamination from the water, and we had two speakers who talked about the ecological way of treating the water, that's natural way, and another gentleman talked about a normal engineering way of handling the water related issues. After moving from water sources, which is the supply side of water, we went into demand supply side of water, and we covered the basic consumer of water, which is agriculture sector. So we had two speakers who talked about water utility in agriculture sector. One speaker talked about the concepts of drip irrigation, the chances and the ways how we can save the water in agriculture sector, how we can achieve 50% reduction. And the second speaker talked about how we can market the agriculture crop worldwide through various technologies which they have. And this speaker promoted the technologies from USA with a concept of carbon neutral concepts. And then moving in from agriculture, we also moved to waterways. A speaker talked about how the natural waterways, the rivers, canals, can be used for transportation. They can be used for increasing and boosting the economy for the areas from where this waterways flows. And all of us knows that the land price is high, which faces the water. So he brought in the aspects of waterways. And after moving in from water, we also spent some time from demand supply. We went into how do we manage the crisis. So for managing the crisis, we had two speakers, one from South Africa who talked about the Cape Town water crisis, how the Cape Town, which was declared almost a zero water city, was transformed and the water level, dam levels went up to 80%, and what the government did, what the people did. And the speaker last Sunday talked about the concept of circular economy in water industry. Now, without getting into more details of this, these are the list of links of past webinars. Anybody who is interested to know more about this can straight away go to these links and learn as much as they can and play the webinars as many times as they like, depending on their subject. And in this webinars also, we touched about education sector and all those things. So I'm not repeating those again. Uh, Now, in today's talk, let's first hear from Nishtha about Singapore water story, how a water stressed country became a water sufficient, and how they managed the complete water story. So before I uh, I would like to stop it here, and I leave it the floor to Nishtha to give her deliberations and talk on Singapore water story. Over to you, Nishtha, now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. All right. Thank you, Mr. Anil, Mr. Gulshan, for the wonderful introduction and for putting together this series of very interesting webinars. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to everyone who's joined us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where in the world you are. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. In the spirit of the series of water, I'm going to talk to you about the Singapore water story today, about how Singapore overcame all the challenges that urban cities usually face and reformulated itself to become a global leader in water management. The agenda for the next half an hour or so is to introduce myself, but I think Gulshan ji has done a great job of that already, and briefly touch upon the problems that Singapore faced, the solutions that they came up with, and how they went above and beyond normal water sufficiency. And finally, I think, which is more interesting, is analyzing what Singapore did right, what were the factors that contributed to this success, and finally, what are the lessons that the education sector can learn from this story in order to enable building the next generation of water leaders.
Dr. Nishtha, ma'am, I have to
Yes.
make a request to you. Can you increase your volume a little bit, or you can bring mic near? You can bring mic near, or you can increase the volume.
Let me.
Because on the WhatsApp they are writing to me. If you can just increase the volume, or you can bring the mic near. Yeah, that's better.
Is this
That's
better?
Let's try it out. Let's try it out.
Okay. I hope this is okay. All right. Coming back to my education background, I've had quite an interesting education background, and I find myself lucky to have found myself in this situation. Basically, I'm a chemical engineer from Manipal, India, who then pursued a master's degree in water resources management and hydraulic engineering. So very, very technical up under my master's degree. But what happened in my master's degree, which was at the National University of Singapore, is that NUS asked us to take 2 modules from any school of our choice. So they had this list of cross faculties that you could apply to take modules. And I've always been curious about multiple things, about multiple disciplines. So I decided to go completely off track and go to the School of Public Policy to learn 2 modules. So what I did there is that I picked up 2 modules called Water Policy and Governance and Systems Thinking. And I feel this completely changed my academic track because this led me to understand how important good policies and holistic planning and overall thinking becomes to implementing great technologies. After this, I continued my affair with the School of Public Policy, and I worked there for 1 year, working on energy and water policies. I then got a chance to come back to engineering to the National University of Singapore to do a PhD. Even though my PhD dissertation was housed at the School of Civil Engineering, it was very cross-disciplinary in nature. I looked at water infrastructure basically, and I looked at how do we make these investments under climate and human-based uncertainties, but it had a lot of elements of economics, finance, and sustainability within my dissertation. Post this, I started working with a very cutting-edge water consulting firm, which was developing digital solutions for good water management. After which I joined a little research group, which was housed in the very large business school, a French business school. But in Singapore, we do solely research on infrastructure. And even though the basic aspect of this research group is to make indices for infrastructure investors, we now look at understanding how good environmental, social, and governance practices of very large infrastructure companies A, impact the environment and the people, and B, how do these relate to the financial performance of companies? So now again, I'm back to a multidisciplinary job wherein I look at finance and environment and science and other things like that. So coming back to the topic of our evening, what is the Singapore water story about? Simply, this water story is about how a 700 odd kilometer city-state went from water rationing, from extremely polluted rivers, from floods and droughts, to 365 days a year of drinkable water flowing 24/7 through the taps, and to becoming a global leader in water management. But if you think a little bit more deeply, if you actually try to think what this story essentially is at the heart, you will come to the conclusion that the Singapore water story, or the successful Singapore water story, is about vision. It's about long-term planning, about cutting-edge technology, about balancing the needs of the environment and the people, about holistic development, about political will, and above all, about exemplary governance. Thinking about it from another perspective, the Singapore water story is about how the academic disciplines of policy, politics, engineering, science, economics, social development, systems dynamics, and administration come together to formulate a national success. Now, let's go to the beginning of the story. Let's look at how the story unfolds, right? So like all stories, we begin the story of Singapore's water with once upon a time. So once upon a time, there was a city-state called Singapore, which was plagued with all the problems that any urban city faces. I feel all cities, or most cities in ASEAN, can relate to this. We have problems of water scarcity, problems of water quality. There are urban floods from time to time, there are droughts from time to time. Singapore had it all. They didn't have enough water, the water was polluted, there was constant flooding. Even though there weren't as many droughts as floods, there were droughts, and with the changing climate, the threat of droughts became even more real. So if we look at these problems in a little bit more detail, let's begin with water availability. So Singapore is a very heavily stressed water country. If you look at this graph on the left, you see it's red, which says extremely high water stress. And there was a study done by the World Resources Institute, and even up till 2015, they ranked Singapore as one of the most water stressed countries in the world. And it projected that by 2040, Singapore would be among the highest of the 8 countries in the world, which would be the most vulnerable to disruptions in water supply. And this is real cause of worry when numbers and data tell you this. Second problem, water quality. Now, I don't know how many of you have been to Singapore, but I'm sure if you would have visited Clarke Quay, Boat Quay, Robertson Quay for a nice evening, for dinner, etc. These pictures are past pictures of those areas. And these are also quite relatable to how rivers in few ASEAN cities are. Now, while today, this area which you see on the slide deck is one of the most popular dining and after-hour destinations in Singapore, for more than a century, these places look like this. And the reason was because Singapore in the beginning, when it was settling down early in the 1800s, migrants would come, and like all development takes place, development happened on the banks of the Singapore and the Kallang River. People came here, they settled, there were fishing operations, they had trade, so people built little houses, people started to dump raw sewage and waste into the rivers. Eventually, as time went by, the 1900s came, boats became better, so the river started getting polluted with oil, with sewage, and markets started popping up. Street hawkers emerged along the river, and they would just throw everything down in there because really there was no other thing available. So initially, these rivers were grossly polluted, unsightly, and they had absolutely no aquatic life. Third problem, floods. unlike today, floods were very common in Singapore in the 1960s and the 1970s. Even today, we do have floods. The lower two pictures are fairly recent, maybe 2010, 2009, but the pictures above are a little bit more past. And this was attributed to the poor drainage that Singapore had. And also the fact that Singapore is essentially a very low-lying piece of land. And so if you have rain combined with high tide, you just flood everything. In 1969, there was a very heavy flood incident where more than 3,000 people lost their homes. Farms were destroyed, livestock was killed. Same thing happened in 1978. People were killed, drains were overflowing, people were swept away, and the damage from the 1978 flood is pegged to $10 million. This happened. Then in the 1960s, there were also water rationing in Singapore when, so you would either have a flood or you could have extreme drought. And there were 6-hour windows where you would have no water, you would probably have no supply at home, you would have to fill water from tankers. Again, a problem which most ASEAN cities are well aware of. And all of these crises, they reflected the vulnerability of Singapore's water supply. And it really begged to do something about it, because this availability of water and water resiliency is really a matter of A, basic rights, and 2, the quality of life of everyone living there. So what did Singapore do? If we think about problems, right? So the first thing that Singapore started to say that, okay, let's first understand what these problems are, where do they come from, and then we look for solutions. So the first problem was that they didn't have enough water. So in the 1960s, Singapore had only 2 sources of water, which was water from the local catchment. This is the rainwater they could collect. But again, the river was polluted, so that was questionable. And 2, imported water from Malaysia. So as a part of independence in the 1960s, Singapore signed a treaty with Malaysia that it would import a certain volume of water from Malaysia up till 2060. So that deadline is coming up. So both these sources of water were prone to climate and political uncertainties. These were not reliable. And the second problem that Singapore had, because of which we had floods and the rivers were bad, was Singapore did not have good water quality or good water quantity management. Again, both these problems, water scarcity, water quality, water quantity, I'm sure sounds very familiar to most of you. So what do you do about it? The first thing Singapore did was to develop a plan to deal with all of these problems in an integrated, holistic way. So this was clear from the beginning that whatever Singapore would do, they would do it in a proper integrated way to begin with. So the plan was logical. First, what do? You look at the conventional sources that you have. That is your rainwater, your river water, your catchments, and your imported water, and you improve them. So imported water was a treaty that was set. There's nothing you can do about it. So what remains in conventional sources is your rivers and the reservoirs that you have. And once you manage or master your conventional sources, you are able to improve them. Singapore said, then we will look at unconventional sources, which is we look at, can we recycle water? Or we're a little island, we have coastlines everywhere, can we desalinate water and use it? Based on this, they came up with the 4 taps of Singapore, which is the 4 possible water supplies that Singapore wanted to develop and tap into. The first one is water from local catchments, that is collect water in rivers and reservoirs. 2 is imported water, because that's a substantial amount of water is imported from Malaysia, and that's a tap you have to stay with. 3rd is new water, which is also known as recycled water. And 4th is self-explanatory, it's desalination water. Now, an integral component of this master plan was heavy reliance onto R&D investments. Right from the beginning, Singapore was very clear that you have to use the best available technology, and you have to invest into research and development if you want continual improvement. And this led to the development of putting 3 key strategies in place. So these were the gospels Singapore followed throughout the development. 1 was they wanted to collect every single drop of water that fell on the landmass of Singapore. Ambitious. 2, they wanted to reuse water endlessly. Again, ambitious. And 3rd, they wanted to desalinate more water. That's doable. So the first thing that Singapore did, and they realized this really early on in the beginning when they were looking at, okay, how do we plan water management, who does it, who doesn't, is that different aspects of the water cycle were currently under different agencies. And the then Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, understood that if the complete different aspects of water are not under one agency, it will cause administrative problems and delays. So, and he also knew that if we have to meet these ambitions of water resiliency, water self-sufficiency, you have to have one agency that, 1, has the authority to do everything, 2, that could be held accountable if something goes wrong, 3, that had the responsibility to deliver this to the public. So they looked at all these agencies and they found the agency, PUB, and started to reorganize their roles. So PUB was initially in the 1960s known as the Public Utility Board. It was set up as a statutory board under the Ministry of Trade and Industry to coordinate the supply of electricity, gas, and water for the whole of Singapore. But eventually, as they started to implement these 4 tabs, they realized that this is not working. So while the organization of roles was ongoing from the 1960s, in 2001, it was formalized, recognizing Singapore's water catchment and supply systems and drainage systems, water reclamation plants, sewage systems. They realized that all of this is part of a water cycle. And everything that is a part of a water cycle was reconstituted and reassigned to PUB. So all PUB did was look after the water loop. The work that it had for electricity, piped gas was taken away, given to other agencies. And at that point of time, the Ministry of Environment was looking at a few aspects like sewage and drainage. That was transferred to PUB. So there was reshuffling there, and it was decided that PUB, which is now called the Singapore's National Water Agency, which all countries have a water board or a water agency or a water ministry, they would do everything that had to deal with water. So PUB was set up as the first thing to do. So once this happened, then they had to get to work. So the first thing was that they needed to improve water from their catchment. So they said, okay, let's clean up the river. This is a quote I really like. So most of Singapore's water story, when I say Singapore's water story is a story about vision, I'm talking about the vision of the late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. So he said at one of these conferences that it should be a way of life to keep water clean, to keep every stream, every culvert, and every rivulet free from unnecessary pollution. And he then challenged the ministry that in 10 years, I want you to clean up the river and I want to be able to fish in this river. So what happened? In 1977, Mr. Lee made this challenge to the Ministry of Environment. And 10 years later, in 1987, the Singapore River was clean. The waters flowed freely, the fishes returned, and the people could engage in recreational activities. A promise made to the public to clean a river was done, delivered as promised. And this was not easy. I mean, this is, again, all ASEAN countries know the pain points with cleaning rivers. You have technical problems, you have pollution, you have to know how to clean it, you have to know how to catch it, you have to know how to stop it. And in addition to these normal technical problems that happened, PUB had that added issue of dealing with social problems. Because as I showed you some time ago in the pictures, that the river was where people lived and worked. So you had to resettle all of these people. You had to take all of these people out of their house, give them new houses. And these were fishermen and traders. And you had to tell them, okay, you have to stop fishing and you have to stop trading and you have to do something else. So you had to move people away from their home and you had to tell them to change their livelihood, which was not welcome. You can imagine the political unpopularity that went with this. It was the biggest resettlement and planning program in Singapore, but it happened and it had lots of ministries involved in it. Of course, the Housing Development Board, which gave houses to everyone, which built houses for everyone. The Ministry of National Development, which helped everyone find an alternative livelihood. And of course, the Ministry of Environment. So after all of this was done, after all of this was implemented, the river went from this to this. Once the river was clean, then they said, okay, we can't have enough water. So what do we do with that? So in the 1980s, Singapore had one reservoir, which is the number 12 that you see on my screen, if you can see it. It was a small reservoir able to collect a very little amount of water. And it was clear that this is not possible. But again, Singapore is a country which is 700 kilometers square. There's literally no space. You can drive from one end of the country to the other in 35 minutes, and you can reach anywhere in 35 minutes. So they said that, okay, we need to develop urban catchments. So as this progress went on, the Ministry of Environment, or PUB, eventually they went to work, they started to draft out. There was a lot of engineering, a lot of drainage, a lot of hydraulics and hydrology that went into building reservoirs. Today, Singapore has 17 reservoirs, and it covers 2/3 of the landmass of all of Singapore. And by 2060, they plan to make this 90%. So 90% of Singapore's land will act as catchments, not the actual water reservoir, but catchments which funnel water to the reservoirs instead of letting it go to waste. So you remember the river was clean and Mr. Lee Kuan Yew wanted it clean. After the river was clean, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew came up with another challenge. He said that, okay, now that the river is clean, why don't we dam up this river and make a freshwater lake? And he said that in 1987, and he gave everyone 20 years to do it. And guess what happened in 2008? We had a barrage across the mouth of the river that they recently cleaned up. So this marina barrage, in addition to building the massive marina catchment, which helps the Singapore water supply enormously, it also helps regulate the levels of water in the reservoir, enabling flood management in Singapore. So along with all the drainage work that went into building these 17 reservoirs, and along with this marina barrage, as a very planned result of this was done in an integrated development manner. What happened as a result of this is that the flood-prone areas reduced from 32 hectares in 1970s to 32 hectares today. That's 100 times improvement in flood-prone areas in Singapore. And I know these, and this is still not acceptable. And PUB is running so many programs in order to get rid of these 32 hectares of flood-prone areas today. So this completed their ambition of taking care of conventional resources. Then we come up to the third tap, the new tap of water, which is called, it's called new water, but simply put, it's recycled water, used water. This tap was developed to implement Singapore's second strategy, which was to reuse water endlessly. What it entails is you collect domestic and industrial water, send it to a water reclamation plant, clean it. In Singapore does it by using ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, and UV disinfection, and make it into ultra high grade quality drinking water. So this process now produces water which has cleared almost 150,000 scientific tests and even exceeds the standards set by the United States EPA and the World Health Organization. Now, even though this water is scientifically proven as safe to drink, there is still a social stigma associated with drinking water that was recycled from your bathroom. Like, not many people want to do that. And this was seen as a clear impediment. So if they have this water, but the public doesn't accept it, that's not going to work. So what PUB did at that point of time is that they ran a lot of social awareness campaigns. They even built a visitor center in one of these new water plants so people can come and talk and engage with new water, try it. And through all of these education campaigns and through the visitor center and through tons of awareness work that has gone in, the acceptability rate of new water now, just the social acceptability rate of new water now, is over 90% for Singaporeans. So, but even then, even though people accept and drink new water, it's okay. It's not mixed into the normal water supply of domestic households until it's absolutely mandatory. For now, new water, when made, goes for industrial use. On a side note, PUB has also launched a beer called New Brew, which is craft beer made from new water. So today, from all of this, new water supplies almost 40% of Singapore's water needs, which is expected to go up to 55% in 2060. Now, there's one thing, like one aspect of water management is to have technology. The other aspect is to be able to implement it properly. That's to have supporting infrastructure to make this happen. So if you look at new water, if you look at the concept of collecting, cleaning, reusing and putting it back into the water cycle, you need massive infrastructure to collect water, take it to the plant, to take the water from the plant to the reservoirs. And this was, of course, anticipated. And the result of this was the building of a massive deep tunnel sewerage system in Singapore, which runs across the city and captures almost 100% of water that comes from domestic and industrial uses. So this was a very expensive, a very long undertaking that the Singapore government pursued, is to build infrastructure to take water from houses and industries to the new water plants and back to the reservoirs. Now, another thing that I would like to mention here is the commitment to constant improvement and sustainability. So currently what happens is the recovery rate of water is about 75%. And by 2060, the goal is to bring this recovery rate to 90%. So you save water everywhere you can, literally. The final thing that Singapore did was to use desalinated water. Now, as you know, Singapore is a little island. It's surrounded by ocean from everywhere. So Singapore currently has 4 operating desal plants and 1 plant which will operate very soon. And by using these plants, we meet up to 25% of our water demand by desalination water, which is expected to go to 30%, but it's going to be constant at 30% in 2030 and 2060. And the question comes up, why? You have so much, the ocean's not going to run out, right? If at all, it's going to increase, the sea level is going up. So why don't you just meet 100% of your water demand by desal? Why do you need to build reservoirs and catch all this water and build deep tunnel sewage systems and things like that? And the answer is energy. Desalination is an energy intensive process. Singapore doesn't have water. At the same time, it doesn't have energy either. It buys energy from Indonesia in forms of natural gas. So again, this whole integrated approach, or this holistic development approach that Singapore took had that component of not sacrificing something else to make water available. They didn't want to create another problem to solve one. So they said, okay, this is the amount of energy that we can divert to desalination, and this is what we will do. But there is one thing you can do. You can improve efficiency, right? So currently, Singapore's desalination method uses about 3.5 kilowatt to produce 1 meter cube of water. But if we continue on the same path, we will need 4 times as much energy to meet our 2060 needs, which is unacceptable. So what they do is they work, you remember the heavy investments in R&D? They're paying off now. So the goal that the very prominent R&D research in Singapore has for desalination, of course, is to reduce this energy consumption by half. So from 3.5 kilowatt per meter cube, they want to make it fall between 1.5 and 1 kilowatt per meter cube in the long run. Now, through these interventions of integrated water management, PUB, which is Singapore's national water agency, as I mentioned, has successfully closed the water loop. There is nothing that's open. So rain falls, They catch it, it doesn't flood, it goes into the catchments, which makes it go into the treatment plant. The treatment plant provides water to the houses and to the industries, which is then recycled by new water, which is then again treated, and of course a part of it is discharged to the ocean, but most of it is sent back to the reservoirs and to the industry. And again, the sea, you can desalinate water and bring it back to the water loop. And this is a feat, both from an engineering perspective, from a policy perspective, and from an implementation perspective. So once they did all of this, they managed to implement all the three strategies that they started out with in the 1970s and what they wanted to do, which is they can now collect every drop of water which falls on the land surface. They can reuse water endlessly. It's a closed loop. You treat it, you send it to the house, you bring it back from the house, you treat it, you send it to the house. And third is they can desalinate as much seawater as they want to, of course, taking into account energy considerations. But there is more to this. In addition to achieving this, there are ways that Singapore went beyond, and there are two particular initiatives that I would like to highlight. The first is demand management. Now, one very important aspect of having enough water is to manage water demand. Now, achieving a sustainable level of water consumption is as important as having a sustainable water supply. And this requires engagement, communication, and participation from the community. So on the domestic front, if you see, the per capita usage of water has fallen heavily from 2003 to 2030. And this is a result of a lot of programs, a lot of education programs, awareness programs, but it's also a result of the water prices. So Singapore has recently seen a water price increase. It doesn't happen very frequently, but the price does increase when it needs to. And it's one of the very few countries in the world where water is priced to recover the full cost of supply and production. PUB is not subsidized by the government. It receives, it is a self-sufficient entity which runs like a company by the money that it gets from its users and customers. So what it does, it incorporates the high cost of producing water from unconventional sources, such as new water and desal water, and it reflects that in the water price. And there's also a water conservation tax that's added to the bill. But the interesting part is, if you see, still compared to the rest of the world, so if you see the total bill per meter cube is $2.93, which is almost 150 rupees per meter cube of water, which I agree in comparison to Indian prices is quite high. But I guess for Singapore, it's okay compared to the difference in the income. But it's still a lot lesser than a lot of leading countries in the world, which do not supply water of the quality that Singapore does. And yes, there are lots of factors to this. Singapore is small, it doesn't require too much piping, maintenance is easier, but at the same time, it's done and it's implemented and it's run efficiently, which is very, very important. So one way in which, so again, if you have water that reflects, if you have the price of water which reflects the full cost, it's going to be expensive. So this encourages consumers to use less water. Now the second, and I feel the aspect that drives reduction in demand is awareness. So if you shop for appliance in Singapore, this sticker is mandatory, which tells you how efficient this particular device is. By device, I mean a dishwasher or a washing machine device that uses water. You have to have the sticker, which tells you how efficient your water is. And so there were studies done. So since they implemented the sticker, they saw that the purchase in water efficient devices skyrocketed. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a few hundred times as compared to water inefficient devices. So this brought about a concept of awareness to the customers. And then we had these pilot programs where they would attach a smart meter to your showers and they would tell you how much water you used per shower, which is okay, small, medium, high range. The water bill every month has this little section which shows you how much water did you use compared to your neighbors. which tells you how good or bad you are. And one very interesting thing that Singapore does is the Public Utility Board, which is PUB, works in tandem with the Ministry of Education to include water conservation topics in students as small as primary 3. So it's a part of their social studies syllabus, and it's called the Time to Save program. They introduced this in 2013, and it's aligned with the Ministry of Education. So they've created a whole ecosystem around it, which goes to start children, which are 9 years old. It starts from there, that you have to cherish, you have to conserve water, and you have to protect the environment. And this little guy that you see on the stamp that I have, he's Water Wally. So this is Singapore's national water mascot.
Dr. Nishtha,
yes.
Dr. Nishtha, this point you please emphasize and repeat it for us, please.
Sure.
Please. Yeah.
So in 2013, in order to start the children young, you develop a culture of water saving and water management, and you have to start the children young. You can't one fine day tell a full-grown adult to change his way of life. That doesn't work. You have to inculcate it into young children, and they grow with the mindset of water saving and water management. So with this in mind, PUB worked together with the Ministry of Environment to implement water saving and water cherishing into the social studies syllabus. They launched, they made this little guy, it's called Water Wally. There's another character called Professor Save-A-Lot, Professor Save, I think. And they together tell these little kids in form of skits and their dances and their little 5-minute plays that you have to go to school, and the children perform as well. And it's adorable the way all of this is done, and they have little water and they tell you how to use it and how not to use it. And they also call out water wasting behavior, and they really highlight good water saving practices from the beginning of little children. And I guess they get summer holidays. In summer holidays, they get little assignments in which you have to measure how much water you used as a person and as a family, and then they get rewarded. So it's part of that whole community development, and they want to bring demand management into the community mindset. Now, on the same topic of community mindset, there is also this program that Singapore launched, which is ABC Waters program. Active, beautiful, clean. That's what ABC stands for. And the notion behind this is people protect what they love. When people enjoy and appreciate something, they will take care of it. So this is what they wanted to do with the reservoirs and waterways. I showed you that picture of how many reservoirs there are in Singapore, and that's bang in the middle of the city because the city is that small. Singapore has over 8,000 kilometers of these open drainage systems. These are not sewage drains, they're just rainwater drains. They don't smell. So they wanted to make this into they wanted to make the community enjoy this. So what you see here in these pictures, these are the drains I'm talking about. These are the drains that help take water to Singapore's reservoirs, and these are the drains that do not allow Singapore to flood in a massive storm which would wash away half of Singapore in the 1960s. So under this program, Singapore has optimized reservoirs, rivers, and canals just beyond the traditional functions of channeling water and water storage, because hey, that's boring, and people are not going to enjoy it and look about it. Instead, they've made these into parks, and they've made these into nature walks. So you see the first image. That's one of Singapore's most the nicest reservoirs, and you can go for a walk down there in the morning and in the evening. There are birds, there are fishes, there are turtles, and it's beautiful. And the second image that you see, this is actually a flood management drain. So when they increased the size of the drain for it to carry more water, they didn't just make a concrete channel. They made it a naturalized channel sort of a way, in which they have sand and they have planted trees. Little kids can go walk on those little stones. Of course, in rain, you will not be there, and there's a section to do that to keep you safe. And more importantly, the third one you see, that's actually a part of an education system. So again, as I just told you, that the Ministry of Education brought this down into their curriculum. So there are some of these reservoirs or some of these water channels which act as classrooms, in which the students, you see there's a field trip going on, and that happens quite commonly. The students can go and interact with the reservoir. The students go, they count how many kinds of species are there. They can go plant little trees to see if the water quality improved. They can play with the stones and see how the water flow changes. So they have consciously tried to build a culture surrounding these water systems. It's not a pure engineering project. It's a holistic project which involves the community, which of course cleans the water and serves the engineering purpose it was built for, but it does so much more than that. It's a place where people come, people enjoy, people like it, and hence they clean it. Well, you don't have to clean it, it's clean already. PUB does a great job of that. But they enjoy it, and it's a part of everyone's social life, right from the beginning, right from when you're 9 or 10 years old. And you grow with that. So right now, just to give you some numbers, there are 36 ABC water sites in Singapore, and there are 100 potential locations where they will be implemented by 2030. And on average, 107500, which is 107,500 students and members of the public interact with these ABC through the ABC program with the reservoirs and water channels on a regular basis. So, what did we learn from this successful water story? Right? If you had to attribute the success of the Singapore water story to a few key factors, what would it be? I actually gave you the answer in the beginning when I told you that the Singapore water story is about vision, long-term planning, cutting-edge technology, balancing the needs of the environment and the people, holistic development, political will, and above all, exemplary governance. These were the key factors that went to define what Singapore did, which was they had ambitious goals, but they weren't just goals. They were backed up with the right tools. It wasn't just a promise that could never be achieved. These goals were backed up with long-term strategies, which were implementable, and two, which were actually implemented. Third, they used the best and the most appropriate technology. Singapore is constantly known as one of the test beds of technology. There's so many startups here who keep implementing and trying out their systems because Singapore gives them the test bed to do so. Which also gets me to the fourth point. They invested heavily in R&D. So now Singapore is a leader in global water management, and it stems, of course, from building the local skill sets that they did in getting their water story right, but also from their investments in R&D from the beginning. So it's all needed. You need technology and you need skills to implement it. Fourth, they focused on constant improvement. They didn't say, oh, we've built it, let this run for 100 years. The plant life is 100 years, let it run. No. They focused on how do I make it better incrementally all the time. Fifth is they took a holistic approach. They did not sacrifice one thing for the other. That is, they don't sacrifice energy sufficiency for water sufficiency. A few points down the line, is they had a national water integrated management plan. And they had it from the beginning. That's what's important. They didn't add this integrated water management as an ad hoc 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line. This was what they started off to do right in the beginning. Of course, it's a young country and they learn from the rest of the world. That's a question for another day. And finally, and I think most importantly, they had political will, which let them prioritize the right policies. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew when he inaugurated the Singapore International Water Week of 2008. So when he was asked, right, so what made your water story a success? And he said this, that he had a unit in his office which coordinated the whole government. And whatever this unit said, dominated every other policy making. So this was the decision maker at the end of the day. And what he did at that point of time, he said that every other policy had to bend at the knees for our water survival. Of course, this was at a time, we're talking about the 1960s and the 1970s, where it was critical to do so. Today, maybe the situation is different. It's not valid universally at all times. But at that point of time where it was needed most for actions and implementations, it was done. And it was done because it was backed up by a vision and by long-term planning. Finally, my last slide for the day is, what can the education sector get out of it? Right? So if you have to think about it, right? If you look at the water story, and if you look at, this is what success stories are great for lessons learned. And how do you repeat successes in different parts of the world, in different places? So how can the education sector prepare the next set of water leaders? What do you need? I gave you this answer in the beginning as well, when I told you that this was a story about policy, politics, engineering, science, economics, social development, systems, dynamics, and administration. So what does the water sector do? What does the education sector do? Sorry. So you cannot solve a problem as big and complicated as a nation's water management by thinking in one direction. You need to appreciate the different aspects that come together to form a great solution. See, you have to run engineering along with social development. You run science along with social development and systems thinking and administration to make a story as successful as this, or solve a problem as big as this. So you need subject experts. Of course, you have to be an expert in one of these fields, but at the same time, you need this expert to learn what different disciplines need and what different disciplines want, just to appreciate it, to have this sort of mindset, which comes from multidisciplinary education. I said in the beginning that when I joined the School of Public Policy, just for 1 or 2 modules, it completely changed my take on life, because I saw that how connected these things are and how much one stream can benefit from another, from multidisciplinary education. And 2, the things that the education sector can do is start them young. Solving these issues, of course, there are technical problems and engineering problems and scientific problems, but there's also a massive aspect of social development and community development and human behavior that goes into this. So start them young, have them appreciate water, have them appreciate the crisis and the benefits and the purity of this to make this successful. Thank you. That was my last slide. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. As I said in the beginning, I'm an engineer at heart, and I know the hydraulics and all of the engineering and science that has gone behind cleaning these rivers and making these catchments and setting up the drainage and stormwater management system. It hasn't been simple. Of course, there have been problems, but today I just gave you a brief overview of the key aspects of the story. If there are other technical questions, I'm happy to take them on at another time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very kind of you. Manocha ji, let's take on the journey forward, sir. What a wonderful presentation. What a wonderful presentation. I run short of words to convey my deep gratitude and thanks to you. I mean to say, at such a young age, you have got so much to share, so much of homework. You have done it so properly. And PUB linked with the Ministry of Education, develop culture of water saving and Professor Save, and water saving behavior and demand management to community management and active, beautiful and clean, technology, skills and constant development, political will, multidisciplinary education, and start them young. I think there's a lot to be done in India that you have given us such a beautiful canvas to all of us. I'm sorry, I've taken the role of Anilji. Anilji, you're back. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Gulshan.
You're back, sir. Thank you. It was such a wonderful presentation. And Dr. Nishtha, it is just the beginning. I would be troubling you a lot because a lot is to be done in India. A lot of work has to be done in India. I think you have done so good for Singapore, such a good, wonderful presentation and packaging and learning and so much of vast experience. I think you owe a lot and we have to request you to help us in India.
My pleasure.
That is something because, yes, in our education ecosystem, we would like to bring it and we would like that it should reach schools, colleges, universities, polytechnic, ITIs, everywhere. And now I hand you over to Anilji. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gulshan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gulshan ji, and thank you, Nishtha. Gulshan ji has rightly summed up Nishtha's presentation. So I will not add much. I will only say that we have seen a story of Singapore in last 50 years, from 70s to 2020, which took 50 years for Singapore to come out from a water-starved nation to set up a global example. And while doing this, there had been a multidisciplinary approach, and there has been a lot of activities that went in. So I will only give a quote before I request Professor Sulochana to say that we cannot change unless we are not aware of what we need to change. And once we are aware of, we cannot stop changing. We have to change. So with that note and with a lot of insights which have gone into it, I will leave my comments as of now because we are still overrunning the time. So before getting into that, I will now move on to Professor Sulochana to give her talk and tell us more about the skill set gaps, what these entrepreneurs need, what are the educational system which is not offering to the industry today. Probably we'll hear more from you, and then probably we'll take it forward. So over to you, Professor Sulochana. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not as yet, ma'am.
Okay, now?
Yes, now it's coming. Yes.
Okay, first of all, here I'm wearing a different hat. I'm wearing the hat of the Vice Chancellor of Binary University. And first of all, I want to say welcome to the presentation on Binary University of Management and Entrepreneurship. So as Dr. Gulshan requested, entrepreneurship is in our name. And the short form is BUME. That's the acronym for Binary University. So the entrepreneurship is already there. Let me just carry on. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is the changing landscape in the education sector. What has changed? The first thing that has changed is that the COVID pandemic has changed the educational sector across the globe. And this was mentioned earlier, that due to the forced close down of schools and universities, we didn't have a choice. There were lockdowns everywhere and we were forced to close. So what does this mean? Firstly, there was no physical attendance in universities. The universities were closed. The second factor that's emerged as a result of the COVID pandemic and the forced closure of universities and schools, there's been an upsurge in the use of education technology, and online education has emerged as the way forward. Even though in the beginning, Dr. Gulshan said focus on entrepreneurship and not on technology, all of us have to embrace technology. We were all preparing for it for the IR 4.0. We said the IR 4.0. Basically, IR 4.0 has been forced upon us because of the pandemic. Another factor that has changed is also universities have had reduced fees. I'm talking not about public universities, I'm talking about private universities, where there's been a reduction in fees due to the changing expectations of customers who've had a drop in their own earnings. When customers and that is students and their parents have had a drop in their own earnings, they request for a reduction in fees. The second factor is the students turn around and tell the universities, look, we are not coming in there, we are not using your electricity, we are not using your water, we are not using your facilities. So why should we be paying the same rate that we would pay when there is when we are physically present in the university? So this is one aspect of the landscape of education that has changed. Another aspect of the changing landscape is that the online education, this requires a huge paradigm shift, not on the part of both the students and the lecturers. Many of us lecturers who are from not the younger generation as the earlier speaker, but the older generation, we have also had to have a paradigm shift, because what we were doing for so many decades, it's no longer relevant. We have to come online, we have to teach online. So this has brought about a paradigm shift on the part of both students and lecturers. With online education, the role of the lecturer changes from a top-down kind of lecturing styles and the students being a passive recipient of knowledge. That role has changed. The lecturer becomes a facilitator rather than a lecturer. And this is a big mindset change. And the students, together with the lecturers, create their own learning process. So this is a huge change, and there's been a lot of resistance. It's not that it happened overnight. It's so easy to, for who feel that we don't like technology, we don't want to embrace technology, have no choice. They have to embrace it, or you would not no longer relevant in the education sphere. So, and also based on the above aspects of the changing landscape, Binary University is offering two of its flagship programs. We have many programs, but I'm only going to talk about two of our flagship programs. That is the Binary MBA and the Binary DBA. And how we are offering it is a bit different from the normal online classes. We are offering it in the real-time class mode, which are online classes held according to the respective time zones of where our students come from. So the lecturers adapt to time zones, and we offer it in real-time classes. So short of the fact that the students are not there physically, everything else is similar to a physical class. Okay, let me just tell you a little bit about Binary University. It was established in 1984 and is one of the oldest private universities in Malaysia. Prior to this, there were no private universities. There were only public universities. And it is rated as a 5-star excellent university by the Ministry of Education. And it's the only university in the world that produces industry specialists, professional graduates, or ISPs. Early on, I was asked to talk about industry, about entrepreneurship. Binary University is also Malaysia's first entrepreneurship university, specializing in producing entrepreneurial managers, entrepreneurial IT professionals, entrepreneurial accountants, and entrepreneurs, and is patronized by students from over 60 countries. Okay, these are some of the awards and the international recognition that the university has received over since its inception. And a few of the countries where our students come from are represented here, but we have students from over 60 countries. Okay, Binary Graduate School is the oldest graduate school in Malaysia, and the Binary Global alumni spanning across the Indian subcontinent, the Middle East, Africa, Central Asia, USA, and Europe. And we enjoy an outstanding reputation for excellent teaching quality, industry-relevant curriculum, and graduate employability. One of the points that was raised in an earlier discussion in this evening was there are too many people who are unemployed. So we produce graduates, and we have a very high graduate employability, which is higher than the national average. And that is due to some signature programs that we have in Binary University. And also the industry relevant curriculum. There are a lot of questions that are often asked of universities, whether it is the job of the university to produce graduates for the industry. And I think the answer is that it is the job of the university to produce graduates for the industry. Because if you don't do that, your graduates are not, who is going to employ your graduates? The public sector is very limited in terms of its capacity to employ graduates, and the private sector also will look for graduates with certain kinds of skills. And if your graduates do not have those skills, they will not be employed. Okay, this is the ISP, the Industry Specialist Program, and Industry Specialist Professional Certification Program, which provides the student with a major competitive edge above other graduates in the job market. I've had students tell me that when they've gone for job interviews and they're competing with students from who have graduated from more developed countries, they feel a bit nervous. But eventually, they say, thanks to the ISB, we landed the job. Even though the other because in the job market, everybody comes with similar qualifications. But it is the person who lands the job will be somebody who's got a plus point. And the Industry Specialist Professional Certification Program of Binary University does that. It provides students with that kind of skills. Okay. And in the country, our graduate employability, as I said earlier, is higher than that of the national average because of the ISP. Because the ISP provides extensive industry exposure. So the industries are happy to take our graduates because they do not have the graduates who go and join, our graduates when they join the industry, do not face such a steep learning curve compared to graduates who have not had this kind of exposure. So students already know, have got intimate knowledge of the industry that they want to apply for a job. It also provides networking with prospective employers, and also it enhances the graduate's employability. And we have seen this for consistently, our graduate employability has been higher than the national average of over 90%. Sometimes in certain disciplines, it is the jobs that are chasing our graduates. And the ISP differentiates our graduates from other graduates because other graduates do not have this particular program, and we have that. Okay, I want to talk about, as I said, two of our flagship programs. The first one is the MBA program. Conventionally, there are two types of MBAs. One is a general management MBA, and the other MBA is a MBA with functional specialization. For example, you specialize in HRM, so you have an MBA in HRM, or you have an MBA in finance, in marketing, etc. The binary MBA gives you both of this. It gives you the best of both worlds, that is, the general management combined with the functional specialization plus the ISP. In the dynamic world of today and the gig economy approaching sooner than expected, everything is changing very fast. Employers are now looking for an MBA who is equipped, wrong spelling there, with cutting edge skills, which the binary MBA delivers through the ISP model. The aim of the binary MBA is to produce industry specialist professionals who possess the following: a thorough understanding of general management, excellent problem solving and analytical skills necessary to function as an effective manager, in-depth practical knowledge of a specific industry, entrepreneurial and leadership skills needed to take an organization to extraordinary heights. The program details are as follows. The programs are delivered on both a full-time and a part-time basis, and is delivered through the real-time class. And the real-time class is the same as offered in the campus, that's the regular degree. And it is offered on a modular basis. It's one module at a time, and it's delivered every Saturday for 2 months, 3:30 to 6:30 p.m. plus GMT. And the delivery mode for the RTC is live, and is 4 subjects per semester and 5 days of classes. And we have 2 assignments weighing 60 marks, and attendance is 80% attendance that is needed to sit for final exams. And the full time is 16 months and the part time is 24 months. Now we move on to the second flagship program of Binary University, which is the Binary DBA. The Binary DBA, the aim of the Binary DBA is an applied program specially designed to equip CEOs and senior managers with contemporary management knowledge, transformational leadership skills, and entrepreneurial mindsets. Just because someone is a senior manager or a CEO, it does not mean that they're entrepreneurial. So when they come to our DBA program, they deliver entrepreneurial mindsets, which can help them to devise and execute innovative strategies to elevate their organizations to greater heights. The DBA modules, there are 8 modules plus a thesis. And currently the modules that are taught in the DBA program are transformational leadership, strategic management in action, of course, research methodology to enable them to do the thesis, global issues in entrepreneurship, financial management, human resource management, international marketing, management issues, and a thesis of 70,000 words. The program detail, again, there'll be assignments. It's basically an assignment-based program where the assignments will make up for 90% of the marks. And again, 80% attendance in the modules is necessary and compulsory, and it will weigh 10%. And there are 48 months and 1 module per semester at 3 hours of real-time classes, and 5 days of classes from 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. plus 8 hours GMT. So this are the program details of the Binary DBA program. Okay, what is the uniqueness of the Binary DBA and the Binary MBA? All classes are delivered in a real-time class mode, live from the main campus. For the masters, there is an ISP component. For the DBA, we do not have an ISP component because people who are coming to us already have jobs and they are senior managers and CEOs. We also have cutting-edge subjects, and we have a high entrepreneurial content in every subject. We have an international faculty teaching in the program. We have global networking, and we have value-added skills through the Binary TV. And of course, we have graduate employability, especially at the master's level, of 96% to 100%. And this is from the Ministry of Higher Education. Okay, this is a picture of some of the prominent alumni of Binary University. One of that, the first picture that you see in this regalia is the Sultan of one of our states. That's I think you do not have this kind of system in India anymore, or any part. I'm not sure about other parts of the world where you have kings and sultans. We have a system where we have sultans in 11 of the states, and this is the Sultan of the state of Kedah, the northwest of Peninsular Malaysia. He's one of our alumni. The other alumni is the wife of our ex-Prime Minister, Tun Mahathir Mohamad, Right Honorable Tun Dr. Siti Azman. The third person who you see in this picture is His Excellency Tony Fernandez, who is the group chairman of AirAsia Malaysia. He was the founder and the group chairman. We also have Honorable Dr. Abdullah Rashid, the State Minister of Education of Maldives, Honorable J.B. Matiza, Minister of Transport of Zimbabwe, and we have Her Excellency Tantri Dato Zarina Anwar, was the past chairman of the Stock Exchange of Malaysia. And we also have Honorable Edifi Hamukale, South Province Minister of Zambia. And we also have Tun Michael Chen, who is a past Senate President and a former minister in Malaysia. And finally, we have respected Dr. Saud Al-Shidani, who is the CEO of HSBC Oman. So this is just a few of our prominent alumni. Okay, on fees and scholarships and application procedures, please write to Binary Graduate School at binary.edu.my. So this is the information, and I'm coming up to my last slide. I just want to say thank you to the audience, thank you to the organizers, and I just want to mention that His Excellency Tan Sri Dato Professor Joseph Adeklam, our founder and chairman and chancellor, will be sharing his views on the education sector in a webinar next week. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'm very, very happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Very kind of you. Thanks a lot. In fact, because this program is of Anil Manocha ji, so I'm just taking a liberty to intrude. Okay. So once your this presentation gets closed, then sharing the views.
Done.
Wonderful. Anil ji, from your side, then I'll take on. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Very kind of you. आपका माइक म्यूट है. आपका माइक म्यूट है.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for enlightening the participants on the change, the way the education system is adopting to the IR4 norms and the way the changes are taking place because of post-COVID scenario. Two things which are coming very clearly is that one, the students are becoming more responsible and teachers are becoming more facilitators. So it is a very good sign where students are showing more interest to learn and teachers are becoming a facilitator to education. The moment this happens and the moment a student realizes that the importance of education, things looks better. And second aspect is that you are very clearly integrating the aspect of industrial needs with the basic education and integrating it with the specific skills which are needed in the current environment. I think it is a welcome step and probably good learning for other educational institutions which are listening to this webinar to see what can be taken from them and how this can be integrated into their system. So I don't have much to add because you have given information on MBAs, DBAs, ISPs and integrating ISPs with regular curriculum. So probably with this, we'll create entrepreneurs and who will be providing jobs to others rather than creating employees who can take up the jobs. With that, I would like to stop here and give a floor to Dr. Gulshan Sharma. Dr. Gulshan Sharma, yours please. Thank you. Sir, you are muted now. Yes.
First of all, my deep gratitude and thanks to both the dignitaries, our distinguished guest speakers, because I consider Anil Manocha ji as a part of the ICSI now. So thereby, first of all, my deep gratitude. Now, I've got a few takes and I've got a few points to share with ma'am quickly, because with Dr. Nishtha, I've already requested her that we would like to incorporate the practical model like Singapore adopted for water management with our education system in India. We would like to propose to the government of India, and we would like to give to the Honorable Prime Minister, Education Minister, Niti Aayog, and everybody. Why not we should incorporate something of that kind like PUB has done with the Department of Education. So with the Ministry of Education, and children should be engaged right from the early stage, early age. And I personally feel during this webinar series, when initially it was started making education relevant, slowly and gradually we brought women empowerment, we brought environment protection, we brought water management strategies. And today I'm realizing that everything is moving in the ecosystem in the right direction, the way we wanted the entire package to be developed. Now, coming further on to it now, ma'am, if I understand correctly, number one, yours is the first private university in Malaysia. Am I correct?
One of the first. I wouldn't say the only one.
Okay.
One of the first.
Okay, one of the first. Okay. And second part is that now the new education policy 2020, which is coming, in existence in India, there are 3 stages. The policy has been announced by India, that is the government of India, on 29th of July in the evening hours by the Honorable Prime Minister and the Cabinet and everybody. And now it will go to Parliament, then it becomes the constitutional identity, and thereafter it gets implemented. So there are 3 stages as far as we are concerned. First is the policy making, then is the policy implementation, and then is the policy monitoring. These are the 3 stages we have got. So now the framework has already started, and in the policy, if you read, it is available on the Ministry of Education website itself, where it is conveyed that 100 best institutions of the world will be invited to set up their campuses in India. So, as your roots are from Kerala, you originate from Kerala, and people, those are watching this particular program, if you remember, one of the most famous celebrities in the Bollywood is Sulochana ji. Do you remember? Do you remember one of the most celebrated, like a mother all the time, very humble mother, very caring mother, very, very, very innovative mother, giving so much of love and affection to children in the films, in the Bollywood, that is Sulochana ji. And when you talk about Nayars, they are originating from Kerala. So ma'am has got roots in Kerala, and there's a lot being done from there. I personally feel that you should bring some kind of a linkages of your university in India in the new education policy 2020, which is coming, so that, and now there are no barriers. The quality will speak, because whatever was to come in next 10 years in the education, it has come like a tsunami in 6 or 8 months, and everybody has switched over now. Whether you call it a blended learning, you call it a flipped learning, you call it outside classroom learning, you call it digital learning, you call it technology-based learning, any kind of a name you can give it. But ultimately the aim is, and I'm very clear as a mandate of our chamber, because our chairman of the MSc segment is also watching this program, Rabindranath ji. And I endorse and re-endorse that in future, as the artificial intelligence, augment reality, and the technology will come further, I am anticipating, and my eyes are seeing next 5-6 years ahead. Can you imagine when all the vehicles will become automated? What will happen to those are in the age bracket of 45 and 50? And when they will be thrown out of the gear all of a sudden, how will they skill themselves? Their children would have not settled. Their families would have not settled. What would happen? So the thing is, if we are not preparing for future, right from now, the technology, artificial intelligence, and all the time, I don't know how it has been invented, artificial intelligence. Why don't we talk about human intelligence? Why do we talk artificial intelligence? Why don't we talk this top portion, which we all have got? It has got so much to offer. We talk artificial intelligence. Why not to talk human intelligence? Rather, we have to create an environment. So thereby, my concern is, I'm very clear, a mandate from our chamber, there are not going to be easy jobs in future. So thereby, startups, stand-ups, entrepreneurs, self-employment, these are the venture and specialized areas. Education ecosystem will also change. people, those are watching this particular program world over, I would request you, kindly see a video called Nightmare to University. You must see a video, Nightmare to University. It is a balance between corporate sector and education sector. I have spent my entire life in education sector, but today I'm finding my PhD, I may be writing Dr. Gulshan Sharma, but I'm not equivalent to even a compounder because my PhD doesn't hold any relevance today. It has gone. It has gone with the time. If I don't skill myself, if I don't upskill myself, if I don't reskill myself, my knowledge is not going to move up. So thereby, today also we are talking about skills, but by the time the children will pass out, whether those skills will remain relevant or not. Because this video which I am talking about, they are telling that the children, those are learning computer education. After 3 years, by the time they will pass out, even that computer knowledge will not be holding relevance for the market for them if they don't upskill themselves. So thereby, my humble request, every education fraternity got to have an incubation center, tinkering labs, innovative teachings and pedagogies. And yes, there is one challenge. And I have seen in the last 10 years, I'm in education for last 26 plus 30 years now. And when I drafted with my colleagues India's first MBA tourism on this platform in the August gathering, I wish to say in a very humble way that I am one of the persons of the team which drafted India's MBA tourism in 1988. We set up the first institute for tourism for the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Now today, with coming that background, in this pandemic, tourism is in the back seat, hospitality is in the back seat, and both of them are linked with the airlines in the back seat. All are linked with the retail in the back seat, media entertainment in the back seat. We got to see so many challenges in future. Now I'm thinking, when I told you entrepreneurship, one of the area, Honorable Vice Chancellor, which can do wonders, and that is called organic farming. I'm talking about 3 things we will always require in life. I have learned on these webinars. I'm a student and I learn from all of you. Today I have learned from Dr. Nishtha, I have learned from Dr. Sulochana Nair ma'am, and I have learned from Anil Manocha ji. Somebody came in this webinar and he told 3 basic things: air, water, and third is food. Air is free, water is free. Comparatively, when you talk about God has given us, nature has given us. The third part is food. Why are we not getting more startups in organic farming? The future is we got to think about it. And the other day, Anil Manocha ji was very kind to get one of the very distinguished speaker and who spoke, and he came later also to give a case study of Punjab, the pesticides, the water level going down and all. I'm so worried. I'm so worried. The situation is not healthy. How the things will happen, what will happen thereby. 71% children world over, the statistics which are coming is they are very happy with the digital learning. They do not want to go back. Yes, they are missing only one thing, boyfriend and girlfriend. That's a different thing. I can't do anything about it. With age, it has to come. They are missing only their boyfriends and girlfriends. They are not missing school or college. They are not missing their studies. Studies are much better, let me tell you, because now there is an accountability. We held a program for 500 principals together in the webinar, and principals told, we are no more principal. I said, why are you joking? Why do you say you are not principal? They say, no, we are not principal. I said, then who is the principal? They say, our teachers are teaching, and now parents are principal. They are sitting next to children and they are watching what is being taught, which way it is being taught, and then parents pass comments. This teacher is very good. This teacher has done the homework. This teacher is very poor. How is she teaching? Oh, she has not done the homework. Education has got exposed. Education will become more transparent. The world will never be able to get back to January, February of 2020. We got to move ahead. Technology has come like a tsunami in the whole world. And 1.86 billion children, when they are out, some of the stats are very alarming, which are coming. 30% parents have already decided they will do homeschooling for their children. They will not send them to schools. 11 million girls are going to be forcefully married at an early age. They will not continue with their studies. There are a couple of statistics which are coming from different quarters, different places. We are doing lots of studies. If 25 webinars are happening per week, you can't imagine how much information is flooding in this fountain. I will lose all my hair, whatever is left over a little bit. They will also not be there after some time. But I'm so happy because I want to be a humble student. We would love your university to have some kind of a collaboration. It should have some footprints in India. It should come out of those 100 institutions, technology based. And then I would like to share with you, there's a lady called Dr. Ivana. She's in Switzerland. We are in collaboration with her, our chamber. And she is having an institute called SUMAS, SUMAS. Kindly see the website. They are in the United Nations building in Switzerland, and they are running MBA Sustainable Development. They are having graduation Sustainable Development. They are having PhD Sustainable Development. The world future is sustainable development. B2B, back to basics of life. And I promise and I commit right before Anil Manocha ji, if your university would need any kind of a consultancy, our chamber would be more than happy to give complimentary basis to you, because you had been very kind to come this evening and to be with us over here. Ma'am, we are focusing only on three things: education, entrepreneurship, and self-employment. Because education, skills, and entrepreneurship is the future. Let's not, I mean to say, I'll tell the entire universe, if anybody can commit to me today that there are jobs, and if anybody tells me there are jobs, I would be the first person come with a folding hand to you as a poor person and tell, please offer the jobs. Where are the jobs? Tell me where are the jobs. So we should be job providers, not job seekers. Children got to be developed now. Internship, entrepreneurship, self-employment, startups, and food-related and organic farming. And of course, when I talk about organic and agriculture, water is the backbone. Because after Singapore, now I'm hungry. I'm looking forward to Israel case study. I want to have water Israel case study, because he had been very kind to bring Brazil. He brought South Africa. He brought the other day Malaysia, and now today he brought Singapore. And you're such a beautiful university. We wish you all the best for your university coming days, and our chamber would be more than happy, because when I was with the Ministry of Tourism, that time there was one university coming up, University of Uttara, I think UTARA or something. They offered me the vice chancellorship when I was leaving Ministry of Tourism. But I took another line and I said, let me just take care of my brothers and sisters, non-resident Indians world over, wherever they are. I think education, skills, competencies, and entrepreneurship. With these words, I would like to convey my deepest gratitude and thanks to both the distinguished celebrities this evening who had been very kind. And of course, little thanks to Anil Manocha ji also, because he is a part of the ICSI. I consider him as an integral part. Ma'am, anything from your side?
Yes. Yeah, just a very quick response to Dr. Gulshan Sharma. We are already in India. We have partners in India with all the top colleges in India. We are in Madurai, we are in Trichy, we are in Chennai, we are in Bangalore. So we are already there. That's the first response. The second response that you're talking about on sustainable development and a master's in sustainable development. My own PhD is in development studies. I went to the Institute of Development Studies in the UK, University of Sussex, a very well-known development studies institute. And the point that was raised by Dr. Nishtha about multidisciplinary approach, when I was in the UK, we already started a multidisciplinary approach. There was no way in the Institute of Development Studies that you would get a PhD without it being multidisciplinary. If you were monodisciplinary, go to the other faculties. The moment you were in the Institute of Development Studies, you have to bring in all the different disciplines. And another point that I want to also make, that you're talking about sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. I worked with the architect at some point a long time ago. I worked with the architect of the SDGs. And it's very important that the responses, because with the COVID, the responses are mainly to address health and other social issues. But I think it's very important not to de-link from the SDGs. The COVID-19 responses have to be linked to the SDGs. And just in the interest, because this is a water-based seminar, one of the SDGs that's not been achieved is the access to clean drinking water globally. That's one SDG. So there is a big demand for clean, affordable drinking water on the SDGs. They've done well on various other SDG goals, but on the water goal, it has not been achieved. So Mr. Anil and Dr. Nishtha, you both are still very much in demand for the SDGs.
Working towards it.
Yes, working towards that, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Honorable Vice Chancellor, I would like to say my only one concern is we have got a special program every Sunday at 3 p.m. India ASEAN series. I must share with you. Every Sunday at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time, we have got a special program, India ASEAN series, which is moving ahead. And our president at present is based out of Thailand. He's in Malaysia. My concern is if 5 lakh plus youth are going out of India every year, instead of going to Canada, instead of going to UK, instead of going to America, why not we should build up a relationship? If those universities can come and they can set up their campuses in Singapore and they can set up their campuses in ASEAN, why are we having a revenue leakage going all the way to 14-hour flight? Why not to take 4-hour flight and reach Mr. Anil Manocha ji? That's what is my concern. There should be a more joint relationship between India and ASEAN, student exchange, faculty exchange, research exchange, innovation exchange, and there are so many people who can come on a short-term assignment to your university also, and they can add so much of dimension, and so much can be done. We would be more than happy to take on it further, and we would love to have it. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, my deepest regards and thanks to Dr. Sulochana Nairji, Dr. Nishtha Manocha ji, and my colleague and the boss of this particular serial and this particular series on the water management, that is our senior advisor, Anil Manocha ji. Because I have got a next program in next 4 minutes, that is education through music. On the same channel, on the YouTube, after 4 minutes, you can see that is mathematics through music, physics through music, chemistry through music, biology through music, and anything you talk about environment through music. There's a special song which has been created for the new education policy 2020 for India, and that is going to be rolled, and we work on to that. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you to both the ladies.